So the last thing I wanted to talk about was open source, and especially the education sector. What's your thinking on that?
Well, we're actually the first and only political party I'm aware that actually runs an office entirely on open source software. Our Dunedin office is entirely open source. Uh, this is one of these interesting things I've learnt about in my 12 months in this portfolio, is just how amazing open source software is and how it's totally played a huge role in the past and can play a huge role in the future. But we've got this giant, or several giant monopolies which totally control our IT needs. So we've got a good policy. I'm hoping more people could engage with it and become aware that the Green Party has an open source software policy, and we actually want to get more ideas and more feedback. So hopefully some of your members and supporters can contribute to that. But I think the government shouldn't just be stuck in constantly always using Microsoft. Why can't we have government departments look at open source procurement for their departments? Why couldn't we develop a strategy for using more of it? Because I think ultimately the taxpayers would be the beneficiaries.
That's really interesting that not only do you have a policy, you've actually got an office, your Dunedin office, that's running open source. How do people working in the Dunedin office react? Do they like it, or do they think that we want the word processor that we've always used is the right one to use?
Well, they like it. Admittedly, they're web geeks that are into open source software, right. So I think that's probably a good example that at the moment open source is somewhat in a bit of a ghetto, with a few really knowledgeable people working on it.
Yeah.
What we'd like to see is an actual discussion across the country and in government departments about how we take it from this one little ghetto and actually roll it out across the country, because again it's the taxpayers are going to be the beneficiaries and the people that access these services.
And I think another area where open source is becoming more and more important is schools. And there's been some really good work done in schools, which people have demonstrated that if they were to buy software for every student, then they're spending something in the region of maybe like $10,000 per student, and they simply can't afford it. The second aspect of that is when the student goes home and they want to work on the same thing. Well, the schools are sort of encouraging them to download and get illegal software because they can't afford $10,000 each. So open source has a double benefit. It allows the school to choose the right tools and to use them and improve them and customize them if they so choose to. At the same time, it allows students to go home and work on the same software and the same projects. So there's a really good double benefit there. Is that something that you think should be made much more widely known and perhaps even compulsory?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic examples and really the direction we want to go. I mean, for me, open source is sort of the best of the internet revolution because it's open, it's communities are involved in it, it's efficient in the sense that it's considerably cheaper. There's just so many benefits from it. Yet these few entrenched monopolies are making a killing, literally huge sums of money off, in your example, off Kiwi kids.
Yeah. Cool. Did you have any other areas that you wanted to cover off, or things that... I think we covered quite a wide ground here, and I found the discussion really interesting and fascinating. But I'm more than happy to, if there's things that you thought people want to hear about or you want to talk about.
No, I think that's great.
Okay. Maybe I'll just ask one last question, because it sort of goes back to where we started about talking about Twitter and Facebook and social media and online, and just trying to get your view on privacy. Is privacy dead, or is actually privacy far more important?
I think it's going, but we need to keep what we've got.
Right.
So I think, say Facebook, it's a good example. They seem to be constantly changing their privacy settings.
Right.
And to be honest, I don't actually look into it in great depth, and I know none of my friends do, so I'm assuming hardly anyone does.
Yep.
And it's a huge issue because our privacy is slowly eroding, and we need to make sure it is there. I know as a Member of Parliament I need to make sure I don't have privacy. I need to be conscious of everything I put on there, be it a silly photograph of me doing something or my kids on there. So, say Google with the Street View
Yep.
camera and the Privacy Commissioner coming out saying that was wrong. We need to keep raising these issues of privacy because we do need to keep it.
Tell us what you think is happening in Egypt and cutting off the internet. 'Cause that was wonderful.
Yeah, well, it's huge what's happening in the internet. A country of 80 million people
Yep.
having the internet switched off, literally, shows what the powerful will do to attack the attacks on their power, because the internet was massive for organising the people to get these messages out there.
Yeah.
Sped up the process massively. So what would have taken months to organise or mobilise years ago happens in days and hours now.
Yeah.
But what you're also seeing, which I think is quite interesting, is the public circumventing those in power who have switched off the internet. So I understand people have rerouted the telephone system to be able to send a Twitter message via telephones,
Right.
which shows that we'll always be ingenious, we'll always find ways, be it to leak those in power's embarrassing secrets, be it to get those important messages out there. So I think it's a good sign for the future of the internet that even though those in power will try and turn it off, you'll never actually be able to turn it off.
So that's sort of, I just wonder, when you were talking, it sort of something leapt up, which was, is it that, we used to say that you needed the open and strong and dynamic free press to count to be a good democracy, and whether an open and free internet is becoming the platform that we increasingly need to make sure that there is this check and balances in democracies, and that actually the openness of an internet in a country is an indicator of the strength of democracy in that country. So do you think that the kind of things that are happening with the internet in Egypt could happen in New Zealand?
Absolutely, it could happen. I mean, for example, our court records and social security records, because they're owned by an American company, are subject to US terrorism laws. So people could have their files theoretically accessed by American legal officials.
Okay.
What we've seen with WikiLeaks is that big companies, Amazon, PayPal, are refusing to work with WikiLeaks anymore. We're seeing Twitter fight, albeit, but having to provide information and tweets from their people. And these are issues which are going to be faced by Kiwis. But also things like the Search and Surveillance Bill, which has gone through Parliament, means that the government does have more access to our information, our files, to our records. And I think that goes against what's made the internet such a transformational, positive shift, is that it's free and it's open and it's democratic.
So I guess bottom line there is we've got real challenges ahead, but the internet's also given us real opportunities. So would you describe yourself, I guess at the end of the day, an optimist or a pessimist?
I think I'm an optimist.
Okay.
I've seen it work so many times that the powerful have tried something, but actually the internet has provided us this wonderful tool to create stuff, to communicate stuff, to collaborate, to construct stuff. I think it's a fantastic tool, and we just need to keep using it for good.
Cool. That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your time. It's been a real pleasure to get your thoughts. I must say that I'm really impressed with your depth of information and your understanding of the issues. And if we had more members of Parliament with that level of understanding, then I'd probably be far more optimistic.
Thanks for
Thank you so much. Thank you.